Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem, finding ourselves mamish in the middle, at the point of life, at the heart of Elul, getting closer to Yom Noraim, taking tshuva more seriously, confronting ourselves and allowing ourselves to reorient ourselves, to think about ourselves differently, to look at our avodas Hashem differently, to look at others differently, to look at the Rabbeinu Shalom differently. All of this shifting, all of this change of perspective brings to mind a certain delicate question. And it's a question that's very fundamental. It's a fundamental question when at the heart of Pnimiyas Torah, at the heart of the encounter with the teachings that vivify our lives, at the teachings that give us chayim, at the teachings that breathe life back into us, there's a certain concern, there's a certain delicate territory where a person comes to the awareness that there's literally nothing in this world. There's nothing that I can do. There's nothing that anybody else can do. There's nothing that the Rabbeinu Shalom can do that can take me away from my innermost point of connection to the Rabbeinu Shalom. I am always inherently connected to God. I am always inherently connected to the inherent goodness that exists at the core of myself, irrespective of any behavioral changes, irrespective of any activity that I engage in or that I don't engage in. And when a person listens to this part of themselves, or a person begins to believe in this part of themselves, because it is a matter of belief. As Rav Tzadok HaKohen Me'Lublin describes, and as Rabbi Nachman describes in Sichos Haran as well, that just as a person has to believe in the Rabbeinu Shalom, so too a person has to believe in their inherent connection with the Rabbeinu Shalom. But when a person throws themselves with self-abandonment and lets go of that perspective of growth or failure and taps into that innermost point, the Kodesh HaKadoshim, that place that is purified beyond any capacity of impurity, the risk is that we may rest on our laurels. The risk is that we may no longer put in the effort to move forward. We may no longer try and rectify our misdeeds. We may no longer try and push ourselves towards activity, which we understand rests at the very bedrock, at the foundation of what it means to be an Eved Hashem in this world. Avodas Hashem is something that is nonstop, never ending. A person is in a perpetual state of undulating movement, back and forth, ratza v'shoiv, up, mechayel el chayel. So we see from a very stark perspective that the singular import of Torah and Avodah in a person's life is to move forward, is to do, is to rectify, is to fix, is to take an accounting of myself and to take cheshbon and nefesh and to look at myself with eyes of clarity, to refine what needs to be refined, to admit what needs to be admitted, to be honest in the places that it's most difficult. Yet on the other hand, we know that there is an abiding principle of acceptance and self-respect that recognizes that at this very moment I am good. I am as good as it can possibly get in the eyes of the Rebbeinu Shalom. Toiv ani be'enai, va'ata alis al kulana. There's nobody quite like me. Chidush kamoni lo hayame olam. So on the one hand, we need to own the fact that we need to perpetually be changing and moving and climbing and growing and fixing and building. Yet on the other hand, we have to recognize that at the very same moment, we're perfect, not perfect, but we're as good as a human being can be in this very moment. And we need to learn how to accept ourselves and undo all of the years of misinformation and miseducation, which drag us down into a position of shame-inducing disrespect towards our godly soul and feeling that we're not shaykh to the Rabbeinu Shalom. And the delicate response to this balancing act, to begin on the eve of Chai Elul, as we get ready to taste the light of the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh, to taste the light of the Balatanya, Zchus Yogan Aleinu, we have to make a very delicate but fundamentally significant distinction. There are two aspects in a person's life in all of reality. There is etzem and there is gilui. There is the thing itself and there is the expression of the thing. Now, the thing itself, the etzem of something, remains perpetually out of grasp for ourselves, because the truest form of that which is essential is Atzmusa Yisbarach, is the essence of the Rabbeinu Shalom, which we know, as we've said over and over and over, that it is an impossibility beyond all concept of possibility for the human being to be able to grasp the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which would be a theoretically impossible concept to even conceive of. Yet nevertheless, when it comes to the essence of things, in spite of the fact that it remains ungraspable and unreachable and intangible to us, we can have some degree of a notion, of a yediyah, of a knowledge of the existence of an essence. So it's not a grasping of the essence, but it's a knowledge of the essence. And in truth, even the knowledge of the essence is not truly the essence, because even a knowledge ultimately becomes a grasp of something. So we have to always be speaking away our ability to grasp the essence, even as we are fundamentally aware that we have the essence right next to us, revealed within us at every moment. The fact that we're not able to grasp the essence does not mean that we don't have access to the essence. The essence is all that there is, it's all that exists. When we talk about the graspability of the essence, the knowledge of the essence, the ability to inculcate those notions associated with the essence into myself, that's a question of permission being granted or disallowed in terms of my human capacity to grasp. But it's never a question as to whether it's always revealed and ever present in front of us. But this notion of etzem, this notion of the essence of the self, this notion of the essence, which is simply a borrowed concept from what we discussed when we discussed the essence of God, Kaviyachol. The essence of the self is a chelek eloi kaimimal mamish. It's an aspect of godliness. It's an aspect of godliness, yet on the one hand, it's a chelek, it's a part, it's not a whole. But on the other hand, in spite of its broken nature, in spite of its difference and the chelek, the notion of a part, which implies separation, nevertheless, it is representative of the fullness and the wholeness that it comes to display. So when we talk about the essence of something, when we talk about the essence, we're talking about the thing in its purified form. We're talking about the thing as it actually is, devoid of any of the colors or the shades of coloring that take place over and over and the gradations of concealment that life brings. When a person has the capacity to tap into that essence of themselves, to close their eyes prior to any engagement with any other, prior to entering into the world of self-esteem where I have to judge things one way or the other, or I have to see myself in relationship to the person above me or the person below me, because self-esteem, as we're going to see, is rooted in the notions of self-worth, self-value, which is ultimately a capitalistic frame where I develop a price notion of myself in relationship to products of better worth or lesser worth. The world of self-esteem is the world of revelation where we engage with yes or no, with changes and shifts. But before we enter into that world, we have to remain steadfast in the space of self-acceptance, in that moment, that island of serenity where I know deep down that I'm a chelek alai kai mimal mamish, and that toiva ani be'enav, there is absolutely nothing that I could possibly do that would push me away from the space of the Rabbeinu Shalom. Nothing, no matter what I can possibly imagine, there is nothing that I can do that disconnects me from the Rabbeinu Shalom. Once a person has cultivated that safe space in their mind, once a person has cultivated the ability to tap into that space, especially by Moida Ani, where we say to the Rabbeinu Shalom that I am here and you are here, and I am grateful for that connection, and I'm saying it prior to even purifying myself from the impurity of death, from the impurity of sleep. It's prior to Netilas Yadayim. In that moment of self-affirmation, devoid of any expression, I need to affirm the essence of myself. And that essence of myself is not mine to defile. That's why I'm able to lay claim to it. It's not mine to pollute. It's part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's. And so when a person taps into that essence of the self prior to any expression, prior to any dibor, prior to any sharing of information, prior to any dialogue, prior to even any thought within myself, which is perpetually tied up within the notions of self-judgment and self-reflection, I need to affirm and confirm the fact that there exists within me a point, a nakuda, an innermost point, the Evan Hashasiyah of myself, at which point everything is nisapich from ra to tov. Everything can be transformed in one moment, and there is nothing that can possibly pull me away from the Rabbeinu Shalom and the goodness that is inherent with me, no matter what, no matter what. Once I have steadfastly created that island of serenity within my mind, then I can safely take leave of it and enter into the world of self-esteem. The world of self-esteem is the world of Gilui, the world of revelation, the world of up and down, the world of right and wrong, the world of good and bad. In that place, I have to determine whether my behaviors are within the framework of positive or negative, and if it's, God forbid, within negative, I have to put in the effort in accordance with my power and my bechira to move myself slowly up the number line, or vice versa. Now, in this space, there is right and wrong. And in this space, there is the notion that I have to change and I have to fix and I have to build and I have to crawl and I have to climb and I have to run and I have to return. Now, how is it that the essence and the expression, the world of self-acceptance and the world of self-esteem operate simultaneously is not necessarily part of what we're going to be discussing today. That rests at the very secret of the impossible unity between oppositional postulates that the Torah HaKadosha places at the very central piece of our avodah. On the one hand, I am fully fine, and on the other hand, I am in need of doing an immense amount of work. And yes, it's a stira, but nevertheless, a stira never prevented a Jew from moving forward in their avodah. But the cultivation of an innermost point, an island of serenity, where I can close my eyes when the noise of the outside gets too loud, when other people's voices begin to cloud my own voice of self-respect, when the notions of the shame-inducing concepts of self begin to pollute my mind, they come and they assault even the foundation of who I am. At that point, I have to drop out I have to drop out of the world of expression, drop out of the world of change, drop out of the world of shifts and different colors, and I have to re-enter back into that ir miklat, re-enter back into that silent place, buried within my innermost point of the heart, buried within my mind, buried within myself. And I need to have access points there. I have to have a nigun that brings me there. I have to have a mimer that brings me there. I have to have the picture of a tzaddik that brings me there. I have to have one keta, one remembrance of an akudah tova that can immediately free me from the confines of the world of expression and revelation where things are up and down, up and down. And I have to very quickly be able to retreat back into that place of innermost comfort where I know I am fully okay right now. And that fully okayness does not negate the need for work. In fact, it informs the possibility of doing the work properly, because if I'm not operating from a place of self-sufficiency, and I'm convinced that in the world of expression, there are things that I need to do in order to make myself valuable or approachable to God, then I will never feel good about myself to ever believe that I'm worthy. But when my self-refinement and my tshuva and the changes that I'm imposing in my life and applying in my life are emergent from a place of pure self-acceptance, of a place of full knowledge that I am good no matter what, so then it's not so much the changes that matter as much as it's the effort towards change and the desire towards change and the motivations that we have to show the Rabbanu Shalom that even though I know the secret that I'm deeply connected to you on every which way and there's nothing that could pull me away from you, nevertheless, all I want to do is come closer to you. And then at that point, the growth stops being a growth that is one of running away from shame and self-judgment, and it's one that's running towards joy, pleasure, love, and fear of our higher power, of our connection to the Rabbanu Shalom. The Rebbe of Itchemeyer Morgenstern describes this dialectical pulsation at the heart of human experience as being two parts that are expressive of one another. On the external part of our life, we have to be looking at ourselves as if we're running as fast as we can to catch the bus that we're about to miss. We have to put in every ounce of effort to become the best people that we can be, with all of the natural acceptance of our imperfections and the acceptance of our responsibility, where we're moving, growing. The ceiling becomes the floor, the next ceiling becomes the floor, ad ein soif mamish. But on the other hand, at the heart of all of that movement, at the heart of all of the change, at the heart of all of the running and the returning and the back and forth and the bruises and the cuts and the joys that I experience in the world of self-development and self-becoming, I have to be able to enter into the innermost point of realizing that there is no bus to catch. I am on the bus already. I am already there. I am already beautiful in the eyes of the Rabbanu Shalom. I already zoicha bedin. In this moment, I'm zoicha bedin because I recognize you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and I'm mamlech you on myself, on my moyach, on my leiv, on my kaved, on all of those parts that are so distant from you. There's nothing more distant from the Rabbanu Shalom than myself. And when I accept the kingship of the Rabbanu Shalom, even on myself, at that point I tap into the fact that Hashem is here, Hashem is there, Hashem is truly everywhere. And it's the avodah of a yid to delicately balance these two perspectives. On the one hand, to live in a world of revelation where I have to move, I have to change, I have to catch the bus. Yet on the other hand, never to allow that intensity and the intensification of self and the movement forward to take away the very true idea that I am on the bus already. I am good. I am be'etzem makusher to the Rabbanu Shalom. And when I allow myself growth in the world of Gilui to be rooted in my understanding of myself and my self-worth from the world of etzem, at that point, we no longer have the question of, oh no, are these pieces of self-affirmation or feeling good about ourselves going to lead to spiritual degradation or spiritual exhaustion? The most natural thing for a person to do is to move forward. We're also terrified that if we're given permission to rest assuredly in ourselves, that we're then going to forget about any of the drives that we have. The human being is in perpetual state of motion. We're perpetually engaged in trying to become better and better and better. That's not going to change. The only question that we have the bechira to change is, from where is that change going to motivate? Will it come from a place of deficiency and scarcity and lack and sadness and pathos and self-judgment and trauma and all of the negative, destructive senses that we've been inoculated with? Or is the sense of growth going to come from the paradoxical space of realizing that I am as good as I can be and I will continue to get better? At that point, that makes all the difference, because when I operate from a place of positive change, of trying to come closer to the Rabbanu Shalom, which is doubled with a very healthy sense of Rabbanu Shalom, what else do you want from me in this world? I am doing my best. What else do you expect from me? When we give ourselves allowance to be okay, in spite of the fact that we know we have to become more okay, or even when we know that we're not okay, then all of our changes and all of our growth is going to be coming from a place of health, positivity, and growth-oriented perspective, where my life is no longer dependent on the next accomplishment, because I already have my life. My chayim was within me. I live a chayim toivim, a chayim amitim. But that gives me the ability to then allow my life to grow and grow and grow into larger colors and larger shades of self. And so the Iker Nakuda in Tshuva is to allow the Tshuva process to be born out of a self-assuredness, out of a self-confidence, not a self-doubt, not a self-meekness, not a self-pathos where I look at myself as broken and in need of fixing. I see myself as fixed, in need of fixing. The fixedness does not negate the need for fixing. This is the delicate paradox. All is good and all can be better at the very same moment. And Be'ezras Hashem, when we allow ourselves to overcome our fear of living in paradox, our fear of living with these two contradictory ideas, our fear of what will happen if I allow myself to feel okay for a second, what we'll come to find is the beautiful, impossible notion of tshuva that comes from a place of wholeness, as the Zohar Kadosh says, and the tzaddikim of Chabad made very, very, very clear to be a fundamental piece. Mashiach asvel asyat tzadikaya b'tiyufta. The Mashiach comes to help the fully righteous restore themselves in tshuva, because there is a secret that is there to be known, that it is the secret of moving forward from a place of richness, from a place of self-saturation, from a place of enoughness. Merachok Hashem nirali. Rosh Hashanah, the tzaddikim say, is perceiving the Rabbanu Shalom from afar. But we said already, Rachok is gematria Shaddai, which means Shaddai be'elukus l'chol bria v'bria. Yes, I'm Rachok, but I'm also enough. Yes, I have enough, but I'm also Rachok. And it's about balancing those two paradoxical elements within the self that gives birth to more. It gives birth to the moreness, to the iyadiyah, to the shattering of the confines of the mind that needs and begs to live within the sturdy ground of rational intellectual understanding, and it allows itself to throw itself off with a bit of self-abandonment into that difficult territory of unknown faith, which gives birth to the anxiety, but ultimately it will give birth to a radically more valuable perspective in life, because every moment is an opportunity to choose more faith. Derech Emunah B'charti, Derech Emunah B'charti, Derech Emunah B'charti, each and every moment, more Emunah, not from a place of kfira, but from a place of recognizing that in relationship to the next level of Emunah, the previous level of Emunah, in spite of the fact that it was beautiful and good and good and good and good, nevertheless, it can become better. It's a bettering that is not rooted in a pathology, but rather in a health. And it's the paradox that we need to cultivate for ourselves, because that's what it's always going to be. When Mashiach comes, there's still going to be growth. When the growth is finished, there's still going to be growth, because the only thing that doesn't need growth or self-development is the Rabbanu Shalom. That's the only thing that doesn't need a change. But the fundamental klal is Kedushasi l'mala mikdushaseichem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Kedusha is always perpetually above mine, no matter how high along the rungs of spirituality I grow. So even the biggest tzaddikim need to learn the art of tshuva, which means that if the tzaddikim have to do tshuva and the Rishayim have to do tshuva, then perhaps the Rishayim, ourselves, we can begin to look at our realm of tshuva, not unlike the tzaddikim, but like the tzaddikim, which means that we're operating from a sense of wholeness, my wholeness, in spite of the fact that my wholeness might be deficient in relationship to my neighbor's wholeness, or my wholeness yesterday doesn't make a difference, because it's Ba'asher Hu Sham, right here, right now, I am whole, and I have to become more whole. And Be'ezras Hashem, when we can cultivate the art of Kibasimcha Teitzeyu, a tshuva that's emergent out of a joy and a self-confidence, rather than a tshuva that's emergent out of a self-despisal, at that point we can begin to understand the true secret of tshuva me'ava, that's meshapich l'zadon into a schus, because now any deficiency that we see within ourselves in the world of revelation, it simply gives me an opportunity to re-strengthen my positioning within the world of essence itself. Be'ezras Hashem.